Hey, Gopher fans, Mike Grimm from Gopher Radio and gophersports.com. Hope you're doing okay. It's time for another edition of Gopher Talk. It's presented by Affinity Plus, committed to the safety of their members, their employees, and their communities during this time. You can learn more at affinityplus.org. And as you can see next to me, Carter Coughlin, Gopher linebacker, Eden Prairie, Minnesota. And first of all, good to see you. How are you?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. Up north in Pequot Lakes, Minnesota, hanging out with the fam and working out. That's about it.
Yeah, and you're at the family estate, the cabin up there. What have you been up to? Obviously, with the quarantine, I suppose you can get outside and do some things a little bit. But you're going through as a potential draftee, and your classmates as well. Everyone in this class, something that no class has gone through. How difficult has this part been, where you can't get to teams, you don't have a pro day? I know you got to run at the combine, but this is a whole unique set of circumstances, huh?
Yeah, it's definitely unique. That's a good word for it. It shook a lot of different things up in terms of training and preparation, and now you're kind of sitting here, and the draft is less than 2 weeks away, and you get drafted, but usually you'd go out to the team and meet everybody, and then be out there a couple weeks later and be full go. But now it's like, who knows when we're going to be able to meet up and do all that kind of stuff. So the reality is you got to do everything you can to prepare the best you can, regardless of where you're at. And so that's what I've really been focusing on.
So, what kind of facilities does the Coughlin estate have to help you stay in shape and work out? I mean, at this point, improving your 40 time probably isn't going to matter the last 2 weeks, but you still have to try to stay in some semblance of shape, I would think.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Luckily I'll never have to run a 40 again. Got to get that out of the way. It was a blast, but I'll never do that again. We got a lot of dead trees up here, so we've been doing some lumberjack work, which has been pretty interesting. But then on top of that, we got a squat rack in the garage, so bench, squat, all that kind of stuff. We got bands, so in all honesty, I can hit pretty much every muscle group, even though there's a limited amount of resources, I guess. And on top of that, I've been doing conditioning and running and stuff, which is different on pavement than a field. But hopefully, I'm going to be able to get out in some grass once all the snow melts up here.
You have some snow still, and it sounds like maybe some more could be coming, but you have still some snow on the ground there?
Yeah, we still have some snow, and looking out at the water right now, there's still a layer of ice over the majority of the water. So it hasn't quite thawed out up here.
So you haven't been out walleye fishing quite yet then?
Not quite yet. No.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what this process has been like for you. Do you stay in touch? Obviously, I would think with your agent. Are you connecting with teams as well? Do they want to find out more about you as a person? If they can't have you as in terms of a workout and a pro day and those kind of things, what kind of take us through the process?
Yeah. So my agent's terrific. He's kept me in the loop with everything, checks in, all that kind of stuff. And before this process ever started, like before the Senior Bowl, before any of that stuff, going through my history, he said, listen, you've got 3.5, basically 4 years of film, even though freshman year, limited reps and stuff, but 4 years of film, haven't gotten in trouble. And, everybody that talks about you is going to say that you're a high character person, you're a team leader, whatever. So teams know what they're going to get in all reality. There's not a bunch of unchecked boxes in terms of what teams need to figure out besides, how I'll be able to play in space, because I didn't get to do a lot of that in college. And so, from that perspective, a lot of teams don't need to have additional meetings with me. I've had some, I've hopped on some Zoom calls and, looked at film with teams, walked through our defense that we ran, talked about their defense that they run, where they see me fit, get to know different people. But at that same token, a lot of teams don't really feel the need to do that just because they know what they're getting. So my communication process hasn't been anything crazy with teams in this time, just because I don't know if there's a huge need for it to be crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And have you gotten an idea, though, of maybe some teams that are keeping a special eye on Carter Coughlin at this point? The teams that say, "Hey, we like you, and if you're at this spot, we could potentially take a pick there with you."
Yeah, I haven't had that conversation necessarily, but there's been teams that reach out that have said, "Listen, like we really like you in this role. This is what we really like about your game. Do you think you could do this?" Or tell us about doing this at Minnesota. And so there's been teams that reach out that at this point I'd say are potentially showing more interest than others. But it's also kind of a gray area too, just because you could think a team's going to take you in this round, and all of a sudden a team who's barely talked to you just picks you up and out of nowhere. So it's I think the conversation of what team would take me where is something that will probably happen with my agent in the next week or so. But at this point, I haven't really had that discussion yet.
And has your agent had discussions with you in regard to what range you could potentially go in this draft? What round, or are you more not worried at this point about that?
Yeah, I really haven't had that conversation with him yet. The way I look at it, to be honest with you, is I'm not so much concerned about what round, because I think that once you get past the first and second round, it kind of turns into like a personal pride thing. I was taken in this round instead of this round. The reality is, I want to go to a team that's looking for the Carter Coughlin skill set. My skill set's unique, and the type of player I am, I think, is unique, and it will fit some teams better than others. So I'm praying and hoping that I end up on the right team where whatever my role is, I can go out and perform.
I want to ask you about your Gopher teammate Antoine Winfield Jr., who you guys go back a ways. When his dad was at the Vikings, you guys, I think, played some youth football together way back in the day before he ended up back at Texas and then came here. And now he's going to be one of 58 guys that's going to take part in this draft virtually. And go back. What's your first memory of Antoine? And then what has it been like being a teammate of his for 4 years representing? I'm going to call him a home state kid as well. For sure, you are,
Oh, yeah.
obviously. What's it been like spending 4 years with him on the home state Gopher football team? And how happy are you for him that he'll be part of this virtual thing?
Yeah, well, just for anybody listening, let it be clear, Antoine's a Minnesota kid, and he's an Eden Prairie boy. I don't care if he claims the Woodlands, Texas. He lived in Eden Prairie way longer than that. First memory of Antoine is when he was on the white team. So in Eden Prairie, we had pretty much every color. We had red, purple, green, black, white. He was on the white team, and he was really an incredible running back on the white team. I mean, he was the type of guy that obviously had his speed, like he's ridiculously fast, but not only that, he would bounce off of people. I mean, it would take like 6 or 7 guys with different hits to finally bring him down. So ever since Antoine was a kid, he's been playing with like a mentality that was far above his age and a skill set that was far above his age. So Antoine was a baller, and his mom would always get mad at my dad for not taking Antoine on our team. We were the Red Bulls every year, and my dad would continually tell her, "Listen, like we do it as a draft. Carter and Antoine are both taken in the top. We can't get Antoine. Nobody would allow that," and she did not want to hear it. So, but Antoine and I hung out growing up and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, we've gotten incredibly close over the course of our college careers. As he's been my roommate since freshman year. And places like the cabin, he comes up every year, hangs out with my family. He's part of the family. My parents consider him like a second son. You know what I mean? And so seeing him have this opportunity, I couldn't be more excited for him. And there's nobody that deserves it more, because that kid works his tail off.
Well, it should be fun. I know you have some other classmates with Kamal Martin and with Tyler Johnson that potentially could hear their names called, and maybe a couple of you guys could end up on the same roster again. But I know you're looking forward to draft time coming up here in a couple of weeks. Hey, it's been fun. Stay in shape there in Pequot Lakes, doing your lumberjack stuff, Carter.
Yeah, I will. I will for sure.
Carter Coughlin is with us, and we're going to have a little bit of a throwback here. We're going to talk about the Golden Gopher football team, particularly this past season, as well as his entire 4-year career. Carter, you're coming to us from Pequot Lakes. You're at the cabin, huh?
Yes, sir. Enjoying my time up here, no doubt.
Yeah, good to see you as always. And have you come down off the high of January 1st, 2020, and capping off your 4-year career with a win against Blue Blood Auburn and winning that Outback Bowl in Tampa?
I have. You know, every time I think back to it, though, it brings me back, and brings me back to all the incredible things about my time at the University of Minnesota. But shoot, as soon as the bowl game ended, I had a day before I shipped out to California to go train for the combine and Senior Bowl and all that stuff. So I had to come down from the high pretty fast.
I know you're getting ready for the draft. There was a thought that even a year ago at this time, you could have entered the draft coming off of your junior year. You chose to come back. Was it worth it now, looking back on what you guys were able to accomplish?
Without a doubt. I mean, when I committed to Minnesota, it was me wanting to get Minnesota to the recognition, to the success, to all that kind of stuff of, the Ohio State and Oregon who were playing for the national championship. That was my goal. I was like, why not do it at Minnesota? And, we've got an incredible 2016 Empire class. We could really do this thing. And so seeing it pan out in the way that it did, and being able to leave the University of Minnesota with that season, that's everything that I hoped and dreamed for.
Well, you end up as a team ranked 10th in the country at the end of the year, 10 wins, with 11 wins, first time in a long time, 1904 with that many wins, first time since 1962. You finished the season ranked in the top 10 in the country. Obviously, a lot of accomplishments, and you mentioned that Empire class, and I don't want to start mentioning names because I'll leave some off, but Winfield was part of that, Tyler Johnson was part of that, Thomas Barber was part of that, Kamal Martin was part of that. All these are hometown kids that you were all part of. Kind of take me back to when you made that announcement. I know we've talked about this before. I remember the story when you decided, and now that it's all behind you, you have left a legacy, that class. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it was special. It just clicked for me that I wanted to be a Gopher. Drove out to practice and told the staff, "Hey, I'm going to be a Gopher." It was one of the greatest days of my life. That was up until I got to run out into TCF for the first time and get my first sack and get our first win and beat Wisconsin for the first time. And the way that everything compiled, man, it was beautiful. I couldn't have planned it any better, and I know that it was directed by God. So just incredibly thankful for my time.
Well, there certainly have to be some really great memories. I'm going to bounce a couple of plays and a couple of things that stand out to me, and then we'll get some thoughts on those. One, you mentioned the Axe. Let's talk about that. Your junior year, final game of the regular season. You need the win. First of all, people forget you need that win to get to the bowl game, which one you got, and then two, you dominated the Badgers. And what was the emotion like as you guys were all charging toward that end zone to get Paul Bunyan's Axe?
Yeah, man. I mean, to be honest with you, the emotion started building, 7 minutes left in the game when the Wisconsin fans started piling out of the stadium. And so it was like a volcano, you know what I mean? It just kept building, kept building, kept building. Final seconds go off and charged and went and got the Axe. And I think what was so special is just the way that every single person on the team played. As a team, we played not flawless, but, as close as a team could. And played together, played with incredible energy, passion, all that kind of stuff. And so that's what made that win so special. It was just an incredible collective team win.
A couple of things stand out to me that year too. You had the big sack late in the game to seal it against Indiana, which that was a big win. It was a night game. It was a fun atmosphere, and then that whole season had some stuff. Obviously, the switch of defensive coordinators, and I know there was a point. I think we can talk about it now, where literally the head coach had you guys draw a line in the sand. I mean, literally, he brought some sand out to the field, right? And you guys drew a line in it. Talk about that.
Yeah. That was just one of those visual representations of, listen, guys, we can do something special. Let's draw a line in the sand, and right here, right now, let's make our legacy as the University of Minnesota. And so, we always talked about. It's funny I say talked about now instead of talk about. We always talked about, in terms of our team, season to season, every season's different, but in that same respect, you carry on that momentum for the guys that are on the team, the pride, the mentality that we're not the old Gopher football program. We're the new Gopher football program with a new standard. And then that led us to this season. We had incredibly close games. But for me, it was an addition of the previous season, just because we all had a different mentality and a different pride.
Well, and then this year, obviously, so many memories. The Fresno State game, pulling that out of the fire. The Georgia Southern game, which we forget about, 3rd and 30, and the offense marched down the football field and got a win with the Tyler Johnson touchdown and all kinds of stuff. But obviously, the marquee regular season game was the home game, Penn State. Everyone wore maroon. Everyone had those gold towels. What was that day like for the Golden Gopher football team and for Carter Coughlin?
Man, that was what I dreamed of TCF looking like. The energy was unlike anything I've ever seen in TCF before. And keep in mind, I've been to every single Gopher game since TCF opened. So I've seen some incredible games. I remember when I was still in high school and we were beating Michigan. We had a goal line chance to win, and I thought that was a crazy energetic fan base, but nothing like Penn State. I mean, Penn State was something else. And just seeing the way that different guys stepped up to make plays and the way that the game ended, with an incredible interception to seal the game. And then everybody rushed the field, man. It was what I dreamed of college football looking like.
And it was as fun of a day as I've had as a broadcaster as well. One of the great memories as well of the season that I think sometimes gets pushed away, and it shouldn't. The game at Rutgers, Casey O'Brien holds on the extra point, and then of course got to do it in the home game against Maryland the week after that. What kind of impact has Casey O'Brien had on this program?
Man, Casey is like a beacon of light, regardless of the situation. I mean, no matter what you are going through, no matter what you're thinking about, no matter the excuses that you tell yourself, you look at somebody like Casey O'Brien, a kid who just ignores excuses, who never stops fighting, and it gives you a whole new level of personal fight, So having somebody like that on the football team where, you have no idea what he can be going through, but no matter what he is going through, he shows up with a smile on his face, and there's nothing more that he wants to do than a 5 a.m. workout that everybody else is complaining about. And that's the type of kid that Casey is. And so, seeing him have the opportunity to go in and hold a field goal, man, that was like a movie. Like it was so special. And, it just hit different for our team because we know the battle that Casey's had, but we know the impact that he's had on all of us individually and as a team. So it was really special.
I think one of the cool things too about Casey, and I say that he's a stud on top of it. I mean, this guy's an athlete. I mean,
Yeah.
at one point I remember when you guys came out in your in one of the cold games, Nebraska maybe, and you came out with no shirts on. Daryl Thompson, my broadcast partner, is like, who's that down there holding field goals? And I'm like, that's Casey. He's like, man, he's cut. And I'm like, he's a stud. I mean,
No doubt.
he's an athlete. It's pretty good. Well, he certainly had a big impact, and the fun thing is he's talking about he wants to win the starting holding job next year. So we'll see how that goes. Last question for you. Speaking of next year, obviously you're going to be playing in the NFL. You'll be keeping an eye on this Gopher program. How much pride will you have that you and your Empire class have helped build this, as Coach PJ Fleck likes to say, this foundation as you keep building this house?
Man, I'm going to have so much pride, and I will always support the Gophers no matter what the situation is. And, I've got vivid memories of my dad sitting downstairs in our living room and yelling at the TV because he's so invested in the game. And, as a kid, you're like, my dad's a psychopath. Like, I don't know why he's yelling at the TV. But between myself, Quinn, and my dad, I mean, watching Gopher games is going to be intense in my household. So, I'm so excited for this season, even though I don't get to, be a part of it in terms of playing. Like, I can't wait to see my boys go out there and dominate and to continue building upon the legacy that we left.
Well, very good. You always have an invite to stop up and bug Daryl and I if you're back for a game up in the booth. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Sounds good, Carter. Great job. Good luck with everything moving forward.
Thank you very much.
He's Carter Coughlin. It's Gopher Talk, presented by Affinity Plus. So long, Gopher fans.